The sun had not set with a flare of color or a sudden drop into shadow. It had simply, gracefully withdrawn. In its place, the evening had arrived like a soft, heavy garment, settling over the shoulders of the world. The transition was so slow, so patient, that the distinction between light and dark had ceased to matter. The traveler stood at the edge of the wood, where the open air met the first quiet reaching of the trees. There was no map in the traveler's hand, no compass held against the chest, for the journey required neither. Ahead, barely visible in the gathering gloom, lay the path. It was narrow, a ribbon of silver-gray earth that seemed to breathe with the same slow regularity as the forest itself. It did not announce its presence. It did not demand to be followed. It simply existed, as it had for a time that preceded the memory of men or the naming of years. The traveler stepped forward, and the first footfall upon the path was not a sound of intrusion, but one of arrival. The ground was firm yet yielding, a surface worn smooth by the passage of countless feet that all eventually found what they were looking for. The traveler began to walk, and with the first step, the weight of the day began to dissolve into the cool, damp air. The trees did not stand as sentinels or guards. They stood as companions. They were ancient, their trunks broad and textured with a bark that felt like cold, weathered stone beneath the traveler's occasional passing touch. As the traveler moved deeper into the wood, the canopy above began to weave itself together, creating a soft, dark lace that filtered the remaining light into a gentle, featureless glow. This was not a darkness that hid things. It was a darkness that held things. It was protective, a vast and quiet chamber designed for the slow work of returning. The air was cool, carrying the scent of deep moss, of wet earth that had never known the heat of the sun, and of the faint, clean sharpness of pine needles resting in the shadows. The traveler breathed in, and the scent was a familiar greeting, a reminder of a place known before words were learned. There was no urgency in the traveler's stride. Each step was a deliberate, rhythmic movement, a slow pulse that matched the swaying of the high branches far above. The path did not branch. It did not twist with a hidden intent. It flowed with the natural contours of the land, rising and falling with the breathing of the earth. It was a constant, a single thread of certainty in the vast, quiet forest. The silence of the woods was not the absence of sound, but the presence of peace. It was a rich, layered quiet, filled with the softest vibrations of life that required no attention. High above, the wind moved with a sound like the distant sea, a long, low hush that seemed to carry away the restless thoughts of the world. Below, the traveler's own footsteps provided the only percussion, a steady, rhythmic, soft thud upon the earth that anchored the mind to the present moment. The path was worn deep into the soil, its edges softened by a plush coating of emerald moss. This moss was cool to the touch and absorbed the light, making the path seem to glow with an inner, silvered clarity. Even when the trees clustered tight and the shadows pooled deep, the path remained visible, a pale and steady guide that never wavered. The The traveler felt no need to look ahead to see where the path was going. It was enough to know where the feet were landing. There was a profound comfort in being guided without being controlled, in following a rhythm that had existed long before the journey began. The forest was patient. It was unhurried. It understood that the most important part of any journey was the steady, quiet movement of returning. Each tree passed was a mark of time that was no longer being counted. The traveler reached out a hand, grazing the rough surface of an old oak. The bark was a map of centuries, etched with deep grooves and softened by patches of velvet lichen. It was cold and steadying. The physical contact with the wood seemed to transfer a sense of ancient stability into the traveler's skin. The forest was alive, but its life moved at a different pace, a heartbeat that occurred once every hour, a breath that took a whole day to complete. This slowness was contagious. The traveler's own breathing began to synchronize with the forest, the inhales growing longer, the exhales becoming a complete release of tension. The air was heavy with the smell of damp bark and the clean, sweet decay of fallen leaves. It was the scent of a world constantly renewing itself in the dark. There was no fear here, for there was nothing to fear. The shadows were not masks for the unknown. They were the resting places of the familiar. The darkness was a medium of rest, a vast and velvet sea in which the traveler was floating. The path continued its gentle winding, leading the traveler around the massive, slumbering roots of the elders and through the narrow corridors of the saplings. Every turn felt like a recognition, a subtle shift in the air that suggested the direction was exactly right.
Moonlight began to filter through the gaps in the high canopy, casting long, soft needles of light down into the gloom. These beams were not bright, they were pale and ethereal, illuminating the dancing motes of dust and pollen that hung suspended in the still air. Where the light hit the path, the silver earth seemed to shimmer, making the way forward even clearer. The traveler walked through these patches of light and shadow, feeling the alternating touch of the cool night air and the sheltered warmth of the thickets. The forest was a cathedral of wood and shadow, a place where the ceiling was the sky and the floor was the memory of every leaf that had ever fallen. There was a sense of deep history here, but it was a history without weight. It was simply the foundation upon which the traveler was walking. The path was familiar, even if the traveler could not recall ever having been here before. It was the kind of familiarity that resides in the bones, a knowledge of home that precedes the memory of a house. The traveler's mind was becoming still, the constant internal dialogue fading into a series of quiet observations. The sound of a leaf brushing against the cloak, the scent of a nearby stream, cool and mineral, the steady, reliable feeling of the earth beneath the soles of the boots.
The path led into a small clearing where the trees stood back to allow a view of the sky. The heavens were a deep midnight blue, salted with stars that flickered with a slow, hypnotic regularity. The light of the stars was ancient, traveling for millions of years just to touch the traveler's face at this exact moment. There was a profound sense of scale in this realization, but it was not a scale that made the traveler feel small. Instead, it made the traveler feel part of a vast and unified whole. The path crossed the clearing like a silver thread, leading back into the deeper, protective dark of the far side. The traveler paused for a moment, not because of fatigue, but because of the sheer beauty of the stillness. The air in the clearing was slightly colder, smelling of the vast, open spaces of the night. It was a clean, sharp scent that cleared the head and settled the heart. The silence here was complete, a hollow bowl that held the world in balance. The traveler took a deep, slow breath, feeling the coolness fill the lungs and then slowly flow out again, carrying with it any lingering fragments of the day. The journey was progressing exactly as it should. The forest was watching over the traveler with a quiet, indifferent kindness. The path was waiting. The walker resumed the pace, stepping back into the shadow of the trees where the air was warmer and the quiet was more profound. The deeper the traveler went, the more the forest seemed to wrap around the path. The trees here were different, their branches reaching down as if to offer a gentle touch. The path itself became even softer, covered in a thick layer of needles that silenced every footstep. The movement became a glide, a fluid transition from one moment to the next. The traveler felt a sense of lightness, as if the forest were taking up the burden of movement. The thoughts of the traveler were now only of the immediate surroundings, the way a shadow played across a patch of moss, the sound of the wind now just a whisper in the needles, the smell of the earth growing richer and more intense. This was the heart of the forest, the place where the silence was born. It was a place of absolute safety, a sanctuary that existed between the world of noise and the world of dreams. The path was a constant, a reliable presence that never asked for attention but always provided direction. It was a bridge between the departure and the arrival, a place where the traveler was neither lost nor found, but simply being. The steady rhythm of the walk was a form of prayer, a repetitive action that opened the door to the deepest level of rest. The world outside the forest had ceased to exist. There was only the path, the trees, and the traveler. As the traveler moved forward, the sensation of home began to grow. It was not a visual image of a house or a room, but a physical feeling in the chest, a softening of the muscles, a quieting of the pulse. It was the feeling of recognition that comes when a familiar melody is heard from a long distance. The path was now leading downward, following the slope of a gentle hill. The air in the valley was thicker, warmer, and smelled of wood smoke and dried herbs. It was a comforting scent, one that suggested a hearth and a bed. The forest was thinner here, the trees more spaced out, allowing more of the starlight to reach the ground.
The path was wide and well-defined, its edges marked by low, rounded stones that had been smoothed by ages of rain and wind. Everything about the environment was welcoming. The traveler felt a sense of profound trust in the path. It had led through the deepest dark and the thickest woods, and now it was bringing the traveler to the threshold of the known. There was no need to hurry. The arrival was as certain as the rising of the sun. The traveler walked with a slow, easy grace, savoring the final stretches of the woods. The journey had been a long one, but it had been necessary. It was the process of letting go of the world in order to find the home. The path began to curve gently to the left, following the line of a low stone wall that was half covered in ivy. The wall was old, its stones held together more by habit than mortar. It was a man-made structure, but it had been reclaimed by the forest, becoming a part of the landscape. The sight of the wall brought a quiet smile to the traveler's face. It was a signpost of the familiar. The air was now very still, the wind having down to nothing. The only sound was the traveler's own breathing, which was slow, deep, and perfectly regular. The sense of belonging was now absolute. The traveler was no longer a visitor in the forest. The traveler was a part of the forest, a moving element in a static world. The path was no longer just a way forward, it was a way in. The darkness was no longer something to move through, it was something to inhabit. The traveler felt a deep, resonant calm, a peace that was solid and unshakable. The end of the path was near, but the traveler did not feel a sense of ending. Instead, there was a sense of transition, a movement from one state of peace to another. The forest was releasing the traveler into the custody of the home. The path was completing its quiet, patient work. The walking was becoming a settling. The trees finally parted entirely, revealing a wide, open meadow that lay bathed in the soft, silver light of the stars. The path continued across the meadow, a straight and certain line leading toward a distant cluster of shadows that suggested a dwelling. The grass in the meadow was long and soft, brushing against the traveler's cloak with a sound like a gentle sigh. The air here was open and sweet, smelling of night-blooming flowers and the cool dew that was already beginning to form on the blades of grass. The sense of home was now overwhelming, a warm and golden weight in the center of the being. The traveler walked with a sense of immense gratitude. The forest had been a good host, and the path had been a perfect guide. The world was at rest, the stars were watching, the journey was nearly over. The traveler's steps were now very slow, each one a lingering farewell to the night and a quiet greeting to the rest that was to come. There was no need for lights or voices. The silence of the meadow was enough. The path was underfoot, reliable and smooth. The dwelling was ahead, dark and silent, waiting to receive its own. The traveler moved toward it with a steady, quiet heart. The air grew fractionally warmer.
as the traveler drew closer to the cluster of shadows. The scent of wood smoke was now clear and distinct, a familiar perfume that spoke of safety and warmth. The dwelling was not a grand building, but a simple, low structure of stone and wood that seemed to have grown out of the earth itself. Its windows were dark, reflecting the light of the stars. There was no sound from within, only the profound silence of a place that is deeply at rest. The path led directly to a heavy, dark wooden door that was worn smooth by the touch of many hands. The traveler paused for a final moment before the door, looking back at the meadow and the forest beyond. The world was a vast, dark, and beautiful place, but for now, it was time to leave it. The traveler felt a sense of absolute completion. The path had done what it always did. It had led the traveler home. There was no question of where to go or what to do next. The house was waiting, the bed was waiting, the rest was waiting. The traveler reached out a hand and touched the wood of the door, feeling its cool, solid reality. The journey was done. The return was absolute. The silence was perfect. The door opened with a quiet, familiar creak, a sound that was less a noise and more a welcoming sigh. Inside, the air was still and warm, carrying the faint, comforting smell of beeswax and old books. The darkness here was different from the forest. It was a domestic dark, one that was filled with the presence of familiar things. Even without a light, the traveler knew exactly where everything was. The heavy table in the center of the room, the low chair by the hearth, the narrow stairs leading up to the sleeping loft. The traveler moved through the house with a quiet, intuitive grace, requiring no vision to navigate the space. The house was a second skin, a shell that protected the traveler from the vastness of the world. Every surface touched was a reminder of a life well lived and a rest well earned. The traveler felt a sense of profound release. The boots were removed, the cloak was hung on its peg, and the weight of the journey was finally and completely set aside. The body felt heavy and wonderfully tired, a vessel that was ready to be filled with sleep. The silence of the house was a thick, soft velvet that muffled the world outside. There was only the sound of the traveler's own pulse, a steady, quiet beat in the heart of the home. The traveler climbed the stairs to the loft, the wood cool and smooth under the feet. The bed was a cloud of heavy linen and soft wool, smelling of the sun that had touched it during the day and the lavender that was kept in the drawers. The traveler lay down, feeling the support of the mattress and the weight of the blankets. The darkness of the loft was absolute, a perfect vessel for sleep. The thoughts of the traveler were now only of the immediate sensations, the coolness of the pillow, the warmth of the covers, the rhythmic, slow sound of breathing. The forest was far away now, a memory of shadow and silver light. The path was still there, winding through the trees, waiting for the next traveler who needed to find their way back. But for this traveler, the work was done. The arrival had been achieved. The rest was no longer a destination, It was a present reality. The mind began to drift, the boundaries between the self and the darkness beginning to blur. There was no longer a traveler, only a presence in the dark. No longer a journey, only a state of being. The home was not just a place, it was the silence that now filled the room. The return was complete. The world was gone. Outside, the forest continued its slow and patient life. The wind moved through the high branches. The moss grew on the old stones, and the path remained, a pale line in the dark. The meadow lay beneath the stars, the grass wet with dew, the air still and sweet. The dwelling was a silent shadow in the center of the meadow, a heart that was beating with the slow rhythm of a deep and restorative sleep. The world was in balance. The night was a protector, a vast and gentle power that allowed all things to return to their source. The darkness was not an end, but a beginning, the space in which the strength for the next day was gathered. The traveler was now part of that gathering. Every breath was a drawing in of peace, every exhale a release of the past. The cycle was perfect. The path had led to the home, and the home had led to the rest. There was nothing more to be said, nothing more to be done. The silence was the final word. It was a word that meant safety, belonging, and an absolute, unshakable peace. The journey was finished. The return was absolute. The sleep was deep. In the deepest part of the night, the forest seems to grow even more still, as if the trees themselves are holding their breath. The shadows in the clearing lose their definition, becoming a single, continuous pool of dark velvet. The traveler, now settled in the loft, is a part of this stillness. The rhythmic movement of the chest is the only clock that matters now. The blankets are a heavy, comforting embrace that anchors the body to the bed. The mind has ceased its wandering. It is now like a still pond, reflecting only the dark ceiling and the silence. The memory of the silver path is like a dream already half forgotten, a necessary bridge that has been crossed and left behind. The sense of safety is so profound that it feels like a physical substance, a warmth that radiates from the center of the room. There is no tomorrow, there is no yesterday, there is only the vast, quiet, and perfect now. The traveler is home, not because of the stone walls or the wooden roof, but because the spirit has found its resting place. The journey of the day has been distilled into this one quiet moment of absolute surrender. The wood of the house occasionally lets out a low, settling groan, a sound of the structure finding its balance in the cooling night air. This sound is not a disturbance, it is a reassurance, a sign that the home is a living thing that is also resting. The traveler hears it and feels a deeper sense of connection to the place. The boundaries between the person and the dwelling are thin. The breath of the person and the stillness of the room are the same. The darkness is a soft, heavy liquid that fills every corner, every crack, every space. It is a darkness that is rich with the potential of dreams, but for now, it is enough just to be still. The lavender scent from the sheets is a gentle floral tether that keeps the mind from drifting too far. It is a reminder of the garden, of the earth, of the cycle of growth and rest. The body is becoming lighter, losing its sense of weight and volume. It is merging with the shadows, becoming a part of the quiet architecture of the night. The peace is absolute. The rest is total. The arrival is final.
The path that always leads home is still out there, winding through the ancient trees and across the silver meadows. It is a constant, a silent promise kept by the earth. It does not matter how far one wanders or how lost one feels. The path is always there, waiting for the first step of the return. It is a path of trust, a path of rhythm, a path of absolute certainty. The traveler knows this now in the way that one knows the truth of the sunrise. The forest is not a place to fear, but a place to move through. The darkness is not a threat, but a shelter. The journey is not a struggle, but a return. This knowledge is the greatest comfort of all. It is the foundation of the sleep that now claims the traveler. It is the reason the heart is quiet and the mind is still. The path has done its work. The forest has kept its promise. The home is real. The silence is the truth of the night. There is nothing left to do but exist in the center of the peace.
The stars continue their slow, silent rotation above the meadow. They have seen countless travelers walk this path, and they have watched as each one eventually found the door. They are the eternal witnesses to the rhythm of the return. Their light is a soft, distant comfort, a reminder that the world is governed by laws of beauty and order. The traveler, sleeping now, is a part of that order. The breath follows the pace of the wind. The heart follows the pace of the deep earth. The connection is unbroken. The world is a single breathing organism, and the night is its time of restoration. The dwelling in the meadow is a small, quiet cell in that vast body, a place of concentrated peace. The traveler is safe. The traveler is known. The traveler is exactly where they are meant to be. The journey was the path, and the path was the home. The rest is the fulfillment of the entire cycle. The silence is complete. The mist in the forest begins to thin, revealing the silver-gray earth of the path once more. It lies there, patient and unmoving, a ribbon of stillness in the dark. It has no destination of its own. It only exists to serve the destination of others. It is a selfless thing, a gift of the earth to those who walk upon it. The moss on its edges is wet with the first signs of the morning dew, though the morning is still far off. The trees stand in their silent rows, their branches heavy with the weight of the night. They are the elders of the world, the keepers of the deep quiet. They have seen the path since it was first trod, and they will see it long after the last footstep has passed. They are the pillars of the sanctuary. The forest is a place of eternal return, a cycle of shadow and light that never fails.
The traveler is now a part of that cycle, a memory held in the wood and the stone.
The house in the meadow is a vessel of deep time. Its stones have seen many winters and many summers, and they have held the heat of many fires. They are imbued with the essence of rest. The wooden beams have absorbed the silence of centuries, making the air within the house feel thick and stable. The traveler is resting in the cradle of this history. The loft is a high, safe nest far above the concerns of the waking world. The darkness is a soft, protective shell that allows the spirit to expand and soften. The peace of the house is not something that is achieved, it is something that is inhabited. It is the natural state of the place. The traveler has simply returned to it. The rhythm of the breath is the rhythm of the house. The heartbeat of the person is the heartbeat of the stone. The union is complete. The arrival is absolute. In the silence of the room, the scent of the lavender seems to grow stronger, a gentle floral mist that fills the senses. It is the scent of the earth's quietest hour. The traveler is drifting now in the space between the thought and the dream. There is no longer any sense of the body, only a sense of the peace. The darkness is a warm, fluid medium, a sea of absolute safety. The traveler is floating on the surface of the night, moving with the slow internal currents of the soul. The path is gone. The forest is gone. The meadow is gone. There is only the presence of the home, a warm and golden light that exists behind the closed eyes. This is the true destination. This is the place that the path was always leading toward. It is not a place on a map, but a place in the heart. The return is finished. The traveler is home. The forest path remains a silent invitation. It is always there, always narrow, always smooth. It does not move, it does not change, it does not fail. It is the physical manifestation of the promise of the return. To step onto it is to enter a state of trust. To walk upon it is to follow the rhythm of the ancient world. The traveler who walks the path is never lost, for the path itself is the direction. The home is the inevitable conclusion of the movement. The forest is the protector of the journey. The night is the medium of the rest. Everything is connected. Everything is in its place. The world is a vast and quiet machine of peace. And the path is the thread that holds it all together. The traveler, sleeping now, is the evidence of this truth. The breath is slow, the heart is quiet, the rest is total. As the night reaches its deepest point, the light of the stars seems to pulse with a slow, hypnotic regularity. It is the heartbeat of the universe, a silent rhythm that governs the movement of the planets and the growth of the trees. The traveler is in perfect harmony with this rhythm. The silence of the loft is a reflection of the silence of the void.
The peace of the heart is a reflection of the peace of the stars. The return to the home is a return to the self and a return to the source of all things. The darkness is the womb of the future, the space in which the next day is born. But for now, there is only the resting, there is only the stillness. The path has brought the traveler to the edge of the dream, and now it is time to step over. The arrival is complete. The world is at peace. The house in the meadow is a silent beacon of rest. Its dark windows are eyes that are closed in sleep. Its stone walls are a body that is relaxed and still. The air within is a breath that is long and deep. The traveler is the mind of this sleeping giant, a center of quiet consciousness in a world of absolute peace. The darkness is a soft, heavy blanket that covers everything. The silence is a song that has no notes. The rest is a journey that has no movement. The path that always leads home has fulfilled its purpose once again. It has brought a weary traveler back to the center of the world. It has guided a restless spirit back to the place of the quiet heart. The journey is over. The rest is begun. The silence is the only truth. The traveler's pulse is now so slow and steady, it is barely a movement at all. It is just a gentle vibration in the center of the being, a reminder of the life that is resting. The mind is a vast, dark, and empty space filled with the presence of the peace. There are no images, no words, no thoughts. There is only the sensation of being home. This sensation is enough. It is the fulfillment of every desire, the answer to every question. The path was the way, and the home is the end. The rest is the reward. The darkness is the medium. The night is the time. Everything is exactly as it should be. The traveler is safe. The traveler is loved by the silence. The traveler is home. The air grows fractionally warmer, carrying a scent that was no longer just the forest, but something more intimate. A whisper of old wood, of a hearth that had been banked for the night, of a space that was held specifically for one person. The traveler did not look up to see a door or a window. There was no need for the eyes to confirm what the heart already knew. The path began to widen, merging into a space that felt enclosed, private, and profoundly safe. The walking slowed, the rhythm of the footsteps becoming so soft they were indistinguishable from the silence of the room. The traveler felt the presence of a threshold, a quiet boundary crossed without effort. The darkness here was even softer, a velvet curtain drawn against the world. There was a sense of a chair waiting, of a bed prepared with heavy, cool sheets, of a silence that was an invitation to let go of the last threads of the day. The journey was not over. It had simply arrived at its natural conclusion. The travelers stood in the center of the familiarity, breathing the air of a place that required no name. The forest was still there, the path was still there, but they were now only the background to a deeper rest. The eyes closed not against the dark, but in harmony with it. The return was complete. Everything was still. Everything was home.